Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a story you probably think you know, but maybe not the whole picture. It's a plot that failed spectacularly.
Oh, spectacularly is the word.
And it really did define an era, didn't it? It even gave us a holiday, bonfire night, still celebrated with fireworks and, well, fire across the UK. We are talking, of course, about the 1605 Gunpowder Plot.
Yeah, and this deep dive, it isn't just about, Guy Fawkes guarding some barrels. This was meant to be a complete political reset. Annihilation, really.
You mean wiping the slate clean?
Completely. The plotters, this group led by Robert Catesby, they were aiming for the total destruction of the English government. We're talking King James I, his immediate family, the Privy Council, all the judges, most of the Protestant aristocracy, the bishops and the House of Lords, basically everyone in power gone in one big bang.
Wow. That's audacious doesn't quite cover it. It sounds like pure desperation.
It absolutely was.
And that's really our mission today, isn't it? To get under the skin of that desperate religious climate that could possibly fuel such violence.
Right. And also to look at the, frankly, almost unbelievable scope of their plan, the logistics, or maybe the lack of them sometimes.
And, of course, the famous betrayal that brought it all crashing down. Plus, the aftermath, the brutal justice, and the legacy that stretches right up to today.
It's quite a story.
So, to understand why anyone would even think of doing this, we really have to start with the context, the sort of historical tinderbox of early 17th century England.
Exactly. You've got the fallout from the English Reformation, Queen Elizabeth I's long reign, her religious settlement, and the result was that English Catholics were pushed to the margins. Really squeezed.
They were living under constant grinding pressure, weren't they? It wasn't strictly illegal to be Catholic, but practicing the faith openly, it was another story.
Almost impossible. And the state had tools, particularly economic ones, to force people into line. We're talking about really severe penalties for something called recusancy.
That's refusing to go to the official Anglican church services, right?
Yep, that's it. And the fines. People hear about fines, but the sheer weight of them was designed to be crushing.
Can you give us a sense of that? What did it actually cost a Catholic family back then?
Well, for the wealthy Catholics, the fine was £20 a month. Now, you have to understand, £20 a year was a decent income for, say, a successful craftsman back then.
So £20 a month is astronomical.
Astronomical. It was ruinous. The state was pulling in something like £5,000 a year just from these fines. It wasn't just a tax, it felt like, and was intended as slow-motion economic destruction, forced conversion, or at least submission.
And then James I comes to the throne in 1603, and there must have been this glimmer of hope for Catholics.
Oh, definitely. A huge wave of hope, actually, because his mother was Mary, Queen of Scots.
A Catholic icon, really, a martyr in their eyes.
Precisely. So they thought maybe, just maybe, things would ease up. A bit more tolerance, perhaps.
But James was, well, he was a pragmatist, wasn't he? King of a largely Protestant nation.
He was. And that window of hope, it slammed shut pretty fast. By February 1604, just over a year into his reign, he publicly denounced the Catholic Church. He ordered all priests out of the country.
Wow.
And then, the real kicker for many Catholics, he brought back those crippling recusancy fines. Queen Elizabeth had actually let them lapse a bit towards the end of her life, but James reimposed them with full force.
So that hope wasn't just disappointed, it was actively betrayed from their perspective.
Absolutely. And the final nail in the coffin, it seems, according to the sources, was a speech James gave in March 1604.
What did he say?
He made it crystal clear. Catholics were, and I quote, not to increase their number and strength in this kingdom. That was it. For some priests, for the more militant Catholics, this felt like a total rejection of any earlier hints of tolerance. It signaled that the persecution, political and financial, was only going to get worse.
And that's what pushes people like Robert Catesby over the edge.
It seems so. Catesby, he'd already been involved in failed plots, like the Essex Rebellion. He'd even tried appealing to Spain for an invasion. This speech, it seems, convinced him and others like him that only something truly drastic, truly violent could work.
Which leads us to Catesby himself, the architect of this whole thing. The sources paint quite a picture, tall, imposing, from an ancient, historic, and distinguished lineage. Sounds almost romantic in a dark way.
He definitely had charisma. He was the spark, the motivator. But he was also, someone already known to the government. He'd been wounded and captured during the Essex Rebellion just 4 years earlier. So he was marked as an agitator.
Driven by faith, but maybe not the best planner.
Exactly. He could inspire loyalty, fierce loyalty, but blowing up Parliament, that required a different skill set. He was fundamentally an amateur conspirator in that sense.
So he needed a team. He starts recruiting, Thomas Wintour, John Wright.
Mm-hmm.
They swear this oath of secrecy in May 1604.
Right. And get this, they actually took Mass together shortly after swearing the oath. Though the priest involved, Father John Gerard, apparently had no idea what they were planning. He was just doing his duties nearby.
Incredible. And then they bring in the man everyone remembers, the specialist.
Guy Fawkes. Guido Fawkes, as he sometimes styled himself, he's the muscle, the technician.
A bomb guy.
The bomb guy, exactly. He was recruited very deliberately because of his military background. He'd spent about 10 years fighting for the Spanish in the Netherlands. So he knew about gunpowder, sieges, demolitions, all the practical stuff Catesby lacked. He even used an alias, didn't he?
John Johnson, apparently. Which raises a question for me. If this was, potentially a suicide mission designed to cause maximum chaos, why bother with an alias at that stage?
That's a great point. I think it shows the sort of split personality of the plot. Fawkes, the soldier, he's thinking tactically. Cover your tracks, light the fuse, get away if possible, maybe escape the country. That's his training.
But Catesby?
Catesby, the ideologue, he was thinking bigger picture, beyond the blast. He wasn't necessarily planning his own escape. He was planning what came next. A whole new government.
And that's where the plan goes from just destructive to, well, almost fantasy territory. They had a succession plan.
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. So, step one, blow up the House of Lords on November 5th during the state opening. Kill the king, his sons, everyone important.
Okay, standard regicide plot so far.
Yeah.
Call it standard.
Right. But step two, immediately after the explosion, a group of them would ride like mad to the Midlands. Why the Midlands? Because James's 9-year-old daughter, Princess Elizabeth, was staying there.
Ah, so kidnap the princess.
Kidnap the princess, install her as a figurehead Catholic queen. A titular queen, really.
And they even had someone in mind to run things. A regent?
They did. The 9th Earl of Northumberland.
Okay, was he in on it?
Not a clue. That's the truly bizarre part. They planned to make him regent, but apparently never told him.
That seems optimistic.
It shows the flaw, doesn't it? You've got Fawkes's military precision, sort of, mixed with Catesby's incredibly naive political thinking. They genuinely seem to believe they could just impose a Catholic regime on a country reeling from, well, what would have been essentially a small WMD going off in the heart of its capital.
But first, they had to get the bomb in place.
And the story usually goes they tried digging a tunnel.
They did try, but apparently they weren't very good miners. Found it really hard going, dealing with the dirt, the foundations. It wasn't working out well.
So plan B.
Plan B was, well, luck seemed to smile on them, or so they thought. In early 1605, a cellar, or rather an undercroft, directly beneath the House of Lords chamber became available to rent.
Right, they just rented it.
They just rented it. It was perfect. Unused ground floor space right under the target. So they abandoned the tunnel and just started moving in the gunpowder.
How much did they get in there? 36 barrels. The sources are clear on that. And contemporary accounts and even modern reconstructions confirm it was more than enough. Enough to reduce the House of Lords to rubble, is how one source puts it.
Enough? Did they know how much was enough?
Fawkes certainly seemed to. Later analysis suggested he'd actually packed in about double the amount needed for total destruction. He wasn't taking any chances. He was a professional, remember?
Okay, so the stage is set. The gunpowder is in place. November 5th is approaching. But then a problem arises from within their own ranks.
Yeah, the human element. Despite the radical nature of the plot, some of the conspirators started getting cold feet. Not about the king, perhaps, but about killing fellow Catholics.
Because some Catholic lords would be there for the state opening, too.
Exactly. Lords Monteagle, Mordaunt, maybe others, they'd be wiped out along with the Protestants. This moral dilemma, this internal conflict, that's what led to the fatal mistake.
The warning letter.
The warning letter. On October 26th, Lord Monteagle, who was indeed a Catholic peer and would have been in the House of Lords, received this anonymous letter.
The Monteagle letter. It's famous, but what did it actually say? Was it specific?
Surprisingly vague, actually, yet deeply unsettling. The key line warned him to stay away from Parliament, saying, "They shall receive a terrible blow, this Parliament, and yet they shall not see who hurts them."
Chilling. And Monteagle didn't just ignore it.
No way. He was understandably terrified. He took it straight to Robert Cecil, the Earl of Salisbury, who was effectively the king's chief minister.
So Cecil knew first. When did the king find out?
Cecil showed it to James first around November 1st. And James had this sort of visceral reaction based on his own family history.
Right, his father,
Yeah.
Lord Darnley, Killed in an explosion years before in Scotland.
Exactly. So when James read the word blow in the letter, he didn't think metaphorically. He immediately suspected, as he put it, some stratagem of fire and powder. That specific phrase, blow, perhaps triggered that memory.
Incredible intuition. Or maybe just deep-seated trauma.
Probably a bit of both. But it meant he took the threat very seriously. He ordered a search.
And the first search didn't find anything.
Not initially, or not conclusively, but on the evening of November 4th, the night before the opening, they went back for a more thorough look at the cellars and undercrofts. This search was led by Thomas Knivet.
And that's when they found him.
That's when they found John Johnson, Guy Fawkes, standing guard over the barrels. And the details of how they found him are amazing.
Oh, so?
He was fully dressed, not like someone hiding, but someone ready. He had on a cloak and hat, boots and spurs presumably, for a quick getaway on horseback after lighting the fuse.
Spurs. Ready to ride off after triggering Armageddon.
And he was carrying a lantern, which you can still see today. It's in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, and a pocket watch, presumably to time the fuse just right.
Caught red-handed. What did he do? Did he resist?
Not physically, no, but he was defiant. When they arrested him, he immediately admitted what he was planning to do: blow up the king and Parliament. James I himself later remarked on Fawkes's Roman resolution, meaning his steadfastness, his lack of repentance, even when captured.
So Fawkes is caught. What happens to the others? Catesby and the rest.
They got word pretty quickly that the plot was uncovered. Fawkes didn't talk initially, but his capture was enough. They knew the game was up. So they fled London, heading northwest towards the Midlands.
Back to the Plan B location, where they were supposed to kidnap Princess Elizabeth.
That seems to have been the desperate hope. They gathered horses, some provided by another conspirator, Sir Everard Digby, who had arranged a sort of fake hunting party as cover, but their escape just fell apart.
How?
It turned into a bit of a shambles. They rode hard through terrible weather, reached Holbitch House in Staffordshire, utterly exhausted, soaked to the skin and panicked. And then comes this moment of almost unbelievable irony.
Go on.
Their gunpowder, the spare powder they had with them, had gotten wet during the escape. So in their infinite wisdom, they decided the best way to dry it out was to spread it on the floor, near the fireplace in the main hall.
Oh, no. Please tell me they didn't.
They did. And inevitably, a stray spark from the fire landed on the powder. Whoosh! A flash fire. It didn't blow the house up, but it severely burned several of them, including Catesby himself.
Hoist by their own petard. Most literally. An accidental self-inflicted wound using the very substance of their plot.
You couldn't make it up. Injured, trapped, demoralized. It was over. The sheriff of Worcestershire and a posse of about 200 men caught up with them shortly after.
And it came to a fight.
A brief, desperate firefight. Catesby, Thomas Percy, John Wright, and his brother Christopher, they were shot and killed. The others were rounded up and arrested.
So the plotters are dead or captured. Fawkes is in the tower. What comes next? The investigation.
Yes, and it was led by Sir Edward Coke, a formidable legal mind. The state needed answers. They needed names, any other conspirators, but more importantly, they needed to frame this narrative.
Frame it how?
To justify what came next, particularly against the wider Catholic community. And they needed confessions, which meant torture.
Even though it was technically illegal under English common law.
Technically.
Oh.
But the king could authorize it in cases of treason, and James I did. He gave specific instructions, actually.
Oh, were they?
He wrote that they should start with gentler tortures, milder forms, and then proceed by steps extended to the bottom depths. The Latin phrase used was et sic per gradus ad ima tenitur, and so by degrees extend to the depths.
Grim. Did it work? On Fawkes?
It seems so. The physical evidence is stark. If you look at Fawkes' signature on his initial statements, it's clear. Maybe a bit shaky, but legible. His signature on his final confession, after days of interrogation, likely including the rack, it's a wreck, barely a scrawl. It shows the physical toll, that Roman resolution broken.
But the investigation wasn't just about the men caught with the gunpowder or at Holbitch House, was it? The government wanted to link it higher up.
Absolutely. They desperately wanted to implicate the Catholic clergy, specifically the Jesuits, who were viewed with intense suspicion by the Protestant establishment. This is where Father Henry Garnet comes in.
A Jesuit priest. What was his alleged role?
Garnet was the superior of the Jesuits in England. He was accused and eventually convicted of treason, specifically of misprision of treason, meaning he knew about the plot but didn't report it.
But he had a defense, didn't he? A very specific one.
He did. It raised this huge moral and legal question. Garnet claimed he had learned about the plot, but only through the sacrament of confession from another priest who had heard one of the conspirators confess.
The seal of the confessional.
Exactly. Under Catholic canon law, he was absolutely forbidden from revealing anything heard in confession, even a plot to commit mass murder. To do so would be a grave sin.
So he argued his religious duty prevented him from warning the authorities.
Precisely. But for the prosecution, led by Koch, this was seen differently. They latched onto a concept associated with Jesuit teaching at the time: equivocation.
Equivocation, meaning using ambiguous language.
Or mental reservation. Essentially, the accusation was that Jesuits believed it was permissible to lie, or at least mislead, under oath in certain circumstances, by meaning something different in your head to what your words outwardly suggested.
So the state basically said he knew, and his claim about the confessional is just Jesuitical trickery to cover his guilt.
That was the narrative they pushed, very successfully. It allowed them to paint Garnet, and by extension the Jesuits, as inherently untrustworthy, subversive, capable of plotting treason while hiding behind religious rules. It became known as the Jesuit treason.
Whether Garnet was truly complicit or caught in an impossible bind, the verdict was inevitable, I suppose.
Pretty much. The trials in January 1606 were swift. The surviving main conspirators, Fox, Garnet, they were all found guilty, and the sentence was the standard gruesome punishment for treason.
Hanged, drawn, and quartered.
The full horror. But Fox, even broken by torture, he had one last act of defiance.
What did he do?
As they were preparing to hang him, which was just the first part of the process, designed to leave the victim conscious for the disemboweling and quartering, he managed to jump from the gallows ladder or the platform.
He jumped. To what end?
To break his own neck. He died instantly from the fall. It meant he avoided the agony of the drawing and quartering, a final, desperate assertion of control over his own death.
Wow. The political fallout must have been immediate.
Instantaneous and harsh. Parliament rushed through the observance of 5th November Act 1605. This basically mandated an annual public day of thanksgiving for the plot's failure, church services, sermons,
And bonfires.
and bonfires. The tradition started almost immediately. People lit bonfires to celebrate the king's deliverance. Soon after, they started burning effigies of the Pope and then specifically of Guy Fawkes.
And that's where we get the term Guy, from burning effigies of Guy Fawkes.
Exactly. Over time, burning a guy led to the word guy becoming an informal term for a man, especially one oddly dressed, and eventually just any man. It's a direct linguistic link back to those bonfires.
Amazing. And the plot had cultural ripples too, didn't it? I've heard connections to Shakespeare.
Yes, absolutely. Shakespeare's Macbeth was likely written and first performed shortly after the plot, around 1606, and it's steeped in the atmosphere of the time. Themes of regicide, ambition, guilt, but especially equivocation.
Ah, linking back to the Garnet trial.
Directly. There's even a specific reference to an equivocator who could swear in both the scales against either scale. It reflects that intense public interest and anxiety around the trial, the Jesuits, and the nature of truth and loyalty that the Gunpowder Plot stirred up.
So we know the plot failed, but thinking about those 36 barrels, how close did they actually come? How destructive would it have been?
That's a fascinating question, and we actually have a pretty good idea thanks to a reconstruction done for an ITV program back in 2005.
What did they find?
They built a full-scale replica of the old House of Lords, building the dimensions, the materials, and they detonated the same amount of gunpowder, 36 barrels, though they had to use modern powder adjusted for a likely 17th century quality.
And the result?
Utter devastation. The replica building was completely obliterated, just vaporized, basically. Experts calculated that no one within about 100 meters or 330 feet would have survived the initial blast. Windows would have been shattered across Westminster. It confirmed Fox's plan was lethally viable.
So it absolutely would have worked. A terrifying thought. It failed, but its impact, as we've discussed, is huge and lasts centuries. But the story isn't quite settled, is it? There are still lingering questions, even conspiracy theories.
Absolutely. The neat official narrative, Catholic fanatics foiled by loyal Monteagle and clever King James, that's been questioned almost since the beginning.
What's the main alternative theory?
The big one centers on Robert Cecil, the Earl of Salisbury, James's chief minister, the man who got the Monteagle letter. The persistent theory, around since the 17th century, is that Cecil was involved.
Involved how? That he was secretly a plotter.
Not usually that he was a plotter, but that he either knew about it far earlier than he let on and allowed it to proceed, or perhaps even helped nudge it along through informants or agents provocateurs. Some even suggest elements of the plot might have been fabricated or encouraged by the state.
But why? What would be the motive for someone like Cecil, the king's right-hand man, to let a potentially catastrophic plot run almost to completion?
Power. Politics. The theory goes that Cecil saw an opportunity. By letting the plot develop to the point where it could be dramatically revealed and stopped, he could achieve several things.
Like what?
Well, first, solidify his own position as indispensable to the king, the man who saved the realm. Second, create undeniable justification for a major crackdown on Catholics, pushing through much harsher anti-Catholic laws than might otherwise have been possible. Basically, use the plotters' extremism to discredit all Catholics and consolidate Protestant control.
So, the ultimate Machiavellian move. Letting your enemies almost succeed to give you the perfect excuse to crush them completely. A sort of early modern deep state theory.
You could certainly frame it that way. It suggests that even the spectacular act of intended violence was perhaps, in the end, managed and manipulated by the state itself to achieve its own political goals.
It certainly adds another layer of intrigue, doesn't it? It means that even now, over 400 years later, what exactly happened in that undercroft and who knew what when isn't entirely clear.
The smoke from the gunpowder and maybe from the bonfires hasn't completely cleared.
A provocative thought indeed. Something for you to think about the next time you see fireworks on November 5th. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.